It's time for this week's RSPW Rewind. 23 years ago, last month, WWE debuted a brand new television show on the USA Network called LiveWire. Now, originally the show aired live in studio on Saturday mornings. It was very interactive. They took phone calls and emails and faxes. Yes, faxes. So they were very interactive. Todd Pettengill was the host. Doc Hendricks, a.k.a. Michael PSAs, was also host or co-host sometimes. Jim Cornette would sometimes co-host, and Sonny was there. Vince Russo was there under his Vic Venom moniker sometimes. Yes, Russo and Cornette standing within 5 feet of each other without Cornette killing him. The good old days. I have a lot of fond memories of that show. I used to wake up and watch. I tried to call in. I could never get through. But one of the famous moments, maybe the most famous moment from LiveWire, was the time that Paul Heyman called in as Bruce from Connecticut. Or the time that Jim Ross was taking phone calls, which I encourage everybody who's listening to this, when you're done listening to this, to go look up on YouTube. It is under the title, Jim Ross Has a Bad Day. JR's reaction to that first caller about 9 seconds in made me laugh so hard I almost pulled a muscle. And then that little head turn midway through as he's looking, staring dead in the camera. JR was not having a very good day. That's me during some of my live streams when I take calls, so I sympathize with him. At the time, RSPW had a few things to say about this new LiveWire show, so I thought that I would gather up a few thoughts, gather up a few posts, and share them with you here. We begin with Jack from September 28th, 1996. I just watched the new WWF LiveWire, and it has to be the worst wrestling show ever. The only good thing was Michael P.S. Hayes, who was borderline kayfabe all show, and even that did not help it in not being a bad show. The highlight of the show was when a caller asked Todd Petting himself, very funny, if WWF was afraid of Hulk Hogan and the New World Order. Todd and Jim Cornette did not know what to say. That was very funny. When the caller asked that, Todd was visibly upset. He hung up on the kid, but tried to soften the blow by saying that they will talk about anything. Yeah, right. Everyone knows that those calls are screened, and if you're not a mark, they will not let you through. For those of you trying to keep count, WCW and ECW were mentioned 3 times each. That was the most shocking part of the entire show. McMahon is trying to change his ways. John Petrie responds, "How can it be the worst when it's a step up from Mania? Actually, they all broke kayfabe in small ways. They mentioned WCW several times. They commented on Jim Ross bringing in Austin and Mark Merrow from WCW. They answered an ECW question. They mentioned Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan. They even clearly showed a screenshot of a fan saying, 'Freebirds forever.' For anyone who missed it, the lucky ones, the show is supposed to have calls, faxes, and emails, and a chat room where marks can ask questions to Todd, Jim Cornette, and Michael Hayes. They only answered about 10 calls and a couple of chat questions. Hayes did not know the difference between a fax and an email. The first one he did, he called it an email. Then he accidentally called one a fax, and Cornette and Pettengill jumped on him. From then on, he kept getting frustrated every time they would cut to him." Let me break in here for a second. Michael Hayes not knowing the difference between a fax and an email is peak 1996. I wonder if he would even know the difference here in 2019. The way he dresses, I don't even know if he knows that it's the year 2019. Anyway, John continues, "It was what WWF Mania used to be, and Blastoff is now, a Raw recap. They did, however, manage to significantly further the Jim Ross angle. They discussed his temporary suspension, they talked to Gorilla Monsoon about what to call the fake Razor and fake Diesel, and even spoke to JR briefly. I think this week's installment was much better than last week's. It did just what Mania used to do, in that it recaps Raw. This does go a bit further, however. Hendricks and Cornette were funny at times. Hell, I thought it was fairly entertaining compared to a time slot that I usually skip in the past. It's definitely a show to be watched following a live Raw." So John seemed to like the show a lot. He thought it was something different, and he had some complimentary things to say about LiveWire. Then we come to Don Del Grande, who says, The highlight for people who had the foresight to tape the show was that fax in capital letters was shown for about half a second, where the only word on the fax that I noticed was bastards. Tracy King responded and said, "Actually, I taped the show and paused it when they showed the fax. The fax said, 'Screw you, Jim Ross, you are a crazy bastard.'" See, back then, instead of angry tweets, we had angry faxes. They just took a little bit longer to come through. This post is from Kintaro from September 29th, 1996, titled, "Next week's LiveWire. Everybody on RSPW, we can do some damage next week by just laying it deep to McMahon on LiveWire. I honestly like the concept. I don't see why you guys hate it so much." Mark Davenport responds, "Some folks know crap when they see it, and this show is crap. You might as well have said, because this is a WWF show, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, if the tables were turned, not many people would give it a chance, seeing the huge bias towards WWF here in RSPW." Ryan Grant says, "I saw a WCW Pro the other day. It featured the Leprechaun and some real sloppy work by the Nasties. I now consider Pro to be crap. I saw a WCW Saturday Night with a barely palatable match by Lex Luger. I now declare every episode of Saturday Nitro to be crap, now and forever. I saw an episode of Nitro that consisted of a bunch of guys in black kicking the shit out of Lex Luger and Randy Savage. There were a total of maybe 3 matches. I declare Nitro to be crap. The exception does not prove the rule. Think about it." I'm not sure what he was trying to say there. I just thought it was funny. He was obviously trying to make some kind of a larger point. Went over my head, whatever it was. October 1st, 1996. Vince McMahon was the next scheduled guest on LiveWire, and George Paul had a request for RSPW in his thread titled, "If You Wanna Cuss Vince." It says, "Don't waste any more space flaming him for the ripoffs," that being Fake Diesel and Razor. "Bust his ass on LiveWire. What an incredible load of shit this program is. I wouldn't call it if it were real. Even Todd, the face announcer, hangs up on everybody. This is the pits. Make it stop." Rass responds, "I say a lot of us clogged the lines on Saturday to ask McMahon some real questions. The show already sucks, and if McMannequin doesn't break kayfabe, it will suck even more. I've come up with a list of questions for McNugget, and I plead for all RSPW smarts to call in. Remember, however, there are screeners, so you have to come up with a markish question. Here is Rass's list, his proposed list of questions to ask Vince McMahon. Question A. What's your opinion of Paul Heyman? Question B. Can you explain to us the agreement with ECW? Question C. Are you trying to rip off the NWO angle? Question D. Why do you wear such ugly suits? Why did J.J. Dillon quit? Why do you blame WCW for your rating slump if the WWF sucks? Are you afraid that the NWO will take over the WWF? Why do you job Vader at every house show? What's your opinion of Sabu? That's such a random question. What's your opinion of Ric Flair? And finally, why do you insist on creating such stupid gimmicks like transvestites and plumbers? I can't imagine why they had call screeners back then with questions like that. October 5th, 1996, day before my birthday. A post by Chris Hugh titled RSPW's new favorite TV show, WWF LiveWire. Let's see. Paul E. Dangerously calling in and telling Vince to shut the fuck up. Vic Venom telling the world that Doc Hendricks was Michael P.S. Hayes and that the Freebirds ruled. Sonny was there. Enough said. Vince's thoughts about Ted Turner, WCW being mentioned freely. I heard something about Jim Cornette owning Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I think. Anything else? I love this show. Even though we still know everything is as much a work as they can make it, there is still the possibility of something happening. Well, that's the joys of live TV. Anything can happen, right? What can go wrong will go wrong. Kevin Lee responds, Heyman said shut the F up, as in the letter F, the most disgusting letter in the alphabet. Now, if this was a shoot, he'd say the whole thing, not just that one disgusting letter. He doesn't say what makes that letter disgusting. He seems he's very much opposed to the letter F. I wonder if he ripped that key off his keyboard. I mean, does it not shower like the rest of the alphabet? You know what the great thing is about the word fuck? I love saying it and doing it. It's fun to do both. I would argue it's the best letter in the alphabet. October 11th, 1996, Jeremy with the thread, put Live Raw instead of LiveWire on Saturday. I don't think he's saying put Raw on Saturday. I just think he's saying instead of making LiveWire live, make Raw live. He says, yes, that's what I'm saying. I heard that McMahon can't put Live Raw every week because it costs much more money than to do a TV taping, or rather than a TV taping. Well, Vince, if you had the money to put LiveWire on Saturday, you should use that money for Live Raw, not LiveWire. Raw is the face of the WWF. Remember that WCW started to take over WWF since they started Nitro. Raw must be all the way live even if it costs billions of dollars. People say Nitro is getting so predictable. That's kind of true, but at least it's live, so you never really know what's going to happen when you watch it. But Raw, not all WWF fans actually go to the tapings, but the people who did would spread what happened. Oh, spoilers. That's something worse than a predictable show. Come on, Vince, Raw must be live. I lost brain cells reading that post. I wasn't the only one who felt that way either. Wanamaker says, obviously you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Making LiveWire live every week is cheaper than making Raw live once a month. With LiveWire, they don't have to pay the extra fees of moving equipment and paying people who do move the equipment because LiveWire is in their own studio. They never have to move shit other than maybe a computer. And then he signed his post, Wanamaker, I hate Hulk Hogan, and so should you. Bite Me says, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to shoot something in-house, where the equipment and crews are already there, than go on the road and set everything up, you dumbass. Now this is the kind of RSPW discourse that I look for. And Silverwolf brings some common sense into the discussion here. LiveWire is taped in their production studio and costs next to nothing to produce. A live Raw would require the cost of the arena rentals. They can't just drop by an arena for free, you know. The paychecks for all the wrestlers and the security and everybody working the event. Your argument is totally impractical and ill-informed. If you don't want to know what happened on Raw, don't read RSPW. It's very simple. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I've used this same argument here 20 years later for people who bitch about spoilers on Facebook and Twitter and on my podcast. And I'm talking about shows that have already aired. Like if I went on my show and I spoiled like the NWA tapings this week, right? They haven't aired yet. They're airing on YouTube this Tuesday. But if I came on my show and I revealed the results to all the matches, that would be a shitty thing for me to do. That is a spoiler. If Ring of Honor has a pay-per-view on a Friday, and this has happened before, Ring of Honor has a pay-per-view that airs live on Friday. I do my show on Sunday. So if I'm talking about the results of that event on Sunday, I'll have people occasionally say to me, well, you just gave away spoilers, that's terrible. And I say to them, no, the show aired already. You haven't watched it yet. That is not a spoiler. People don't understand this concept. So I've had to have these conversations recently. I've had to fight these battles recently. It's like Silverwolf said, don't go on Facebook and don't go on Twitter until you've watched the show if you don't want to be spoiled. It's very simple. Some things never change. And finally, I'll end with this. On another LiveWire related post, there was a reply, like an RKO out of nowhere, from Justin on October 12, 1996. Dear RSPWers, I know Segas are old, but since this is a wrestling news group, I was hoping I could maybe sell my wrestling video games for my Sega. Here are my list of games and prices. Royal Rumble, $20. WWF Raw, $20. WWF WrestleMania the arcade game, $30. And my Sega Genesis for $50. I doubt anyone will want to purchase the Sega or any of the games, but if you do, please get back to me ASAP. The Sega is in perfect condition, nothing is wrong with it at all. The games include an instruction booklet. Please don't flame me for posting this on a wrestling news group because I figured since I'm selling wrestling games, it would be alright. If you purchase the Sega only, I will send you NBA Bulls vs. Lakers free of charge. Hope to get a response from one of you. Thanks for your time. I pulled this because it was just so random, and it's like it was in the middle of like a flame war about LiveWire and Todd Pettengill, and then all of a sudden this guy's trying to sell a Sega Genesis here in 1996, a Sega in perfect condition. I'd like to talk to this guy. I might like to buy that. You think Justin still has it for sale from 1996? Shockingly, nobody did flame him. They were too busy arguing over whether Vic Venom was his real name and wanting to see his birth certificate from his mother's hope chest. That was the discussion that was going on. This has been your weekly reminder that wrestling fans are raving psychos, except for Justin. He seems like a really nice guy.